Before Deadpool would become a pop culture sensation as the newest and raunchiest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before Deadpool would cross paths with the likes of Wolverine, Iron Man, Daredevil, and the Fantastic Four. Before Deadpool would be portrayed by Ryan Reynolds in the 2016 R-rated film and become one of the biggest surprise hits in box office history, earning a whopping $782.6 million worldwide.
Who is the one male celebrity you'd be prepared to date? Any Hemsworth brother.
Oh, I love
Those
that
guys
answer.
are dreamy.
Before Deadpool would become the most mentally unstable superhero to ever wield a set of katanas. Deadpool was first conceived in 1991 as a character in the Marvel series The New Mutants by co-creator Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza. Unlike most superhero debuts, Deadpool's first appearance in print was actually as a villain. Deadpool would be hired as a mercenary to attack the New Mutants and would only get a chance to have his own comic book strip 6 years later in 1997. His first encounter with the New Mutants would put him in contact with a character named Cable, the time-traveling son of iconic X-Men Cyclops. In 2004, these two characters would get together to form their own buddy comic strip called Cable and Deadpool, and it would be in this series that Deadpool would famously refer to his own appearance as Ryan Reynolds, mixed with a sharp head. Without that offhand joke about his likeness to the star celebrity, Deadpool probably would have never gotten the attention of Ryan Reynolds, who immediately fell in love with the character and had to push tirelessly for 11 years to get the film made. Therefore, if Deadpool had never compared himself to Ryan Reynolds in the first place, the 2016 film would probably not exist today. Talk about meta. Deadpool's origin, like a lot of comic book characters, started off with an artist and a writer. Or two artists, writers, I don't know, comic book credits, they're a little confusing. Anyways, the two guys were Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza. Liefeld, who worked as a comic book artist for both Marvel and DC through the late 80s, came up with the groundwork and vision for the character, wanting to create a smart-mouthed anti-hero to spice things up for a bit in issue number 98 of The New Mutants, Enter Deadpool. Nicieza took Liefeld's concept, designed the original artwork, and brought the character to life for the first time on the page. The creators would realize that their character had a lot of similarities to Deathstroke from Teen Titans, which is why they decided to make his civilian name Wade Wilson in reference to Deathstroke's real name, Slade Wilson. Because of his mental condition, Deadpool's backstory has remained purposely vague from the beginning and has never really been explored too much in any of the comics. All we know is that he claims to be Canadian and that he joined the Weapon X program after getting kicked out of the US Army's Special Forces. Similar to Wolverine, he was subjected to a painful procedure that would give him regenerative healing abilities, essentially making him immortal. Now, because Deadpool's origin story is so vague and his super ability is not that unique, the notion of who deserves the most credit for Deadpool's existence today becomes an interesting question. Let's start with his original creator, Rob Liefeld, who immediately draws a lot of heat from people in the industry, and it's really not too difficult to understand why. First off, well, he can be kind of a dick. Instead of embracing the efforts of his partner, Fabian, and bringing Deadpool to life for the first time, he's publicly mocked his co-creator's credit for Deadpool, arguing that he himself did all the heavy lifting for the character. Fabian's role was hardly even that of a collaborator. Liefeld once said in an interview, "If a janitor scripted New Mutants 98, he'd be the co-creator, that's how it works, buddy. Deadpool does not exist in any way, shape, or form without me." And for the record, Liefeld really did say buddy in the original quote. Ooh, he meant business. Liefeld also has a notorious reputation for being late on his deliverables, specifically his creator-owned projects like Young Blood. He's reportedly cancelled multiple projects in the middle of development, and he is known for stating his outlandish opinions publicly on Twitter. After quitting DC in 2012, he tweeted, "Next time a little DC editor wants to show me how big his little pecker is, oh right, that's over for good." With a follow-up tweet that named the associate editor, Brian Smith, as the person in question. Sounds like Liefeld had a bit of a temper. Aside from his fiery personality, Liefeld also has been criticized for his artistic abilities, or lack thereof. The famous British comic book illustrator Barry Windsor Smith said in a 1996 interview, "Rob Liefeld has nothing to offer. It's as plain as bacon on your plate. He cannot draw, he can't write, he is a young boy." Okay, so Liefeld may not be the most talented comic book artist of all time, being most well known for his wildly disproportionate characters, an inability to draw hands or feet, and an obsession with pouches for some reason.
Things in reality that have pouches. SWAT units. guys in the military field have pouches. Isn't that funny?
However, despite these detractors, Liefeld has managed to produce some of the most commercially successful comics of all time, and has many defenders that have spoken out on his behalf. Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman said in an interview that Liefeld's over-the-top aesthetic and heavily weaponized characters blew him away as a kid, and that he even idolized him growing up. Now back to Deadpool. Due to the collaborative nature of comic book characters, the credit for Deadpool's creation doesn't end with Liefeld, a fact that Liefeld himself would probably dispute, having called every Deadpool writer since him to be a D-lister, which is a little ridiculous considering how long after Liefeld stopped writing for Deadpool that the character actually took on mainstream recognition. Talk about a miscalculated cheap shot. When writer Joe Kelly and artist Ed McGuinness took over Deadpool in 1997, they made the game-changing decision to have Deadpool break the fourth wall and talk directly to the audience, which is arguably Deadpool's most distinguishing feature as we know him today. Kelly and McGuinness felt that Deadpool's self-awareness about his fictional existence and off-color jokes to the audience fit nicely with the character's unstable mind. Although his look and his regenerative healing ability remained the same, his personality became less dark and villainous, and he became more of a parody of the genre itself than an actual dramatic character. They also brought about a human element to Deadpool anti-hero persona by establishing a supporting cast with his den mother, Blind Al, and his wisecracking best friend, Weasel, both of whom are key characters in the 2016 film. Despite all the added elements to Deadpool's character through the late 1990s and early 2000s, Deadpool remained relatively unknown until 2006, when the video game Marvel Ultimate Alliance was released and Deadpool was exposed to a mainstream audience for the first time. It was coincidentally around this time that meme culture started taking off on the internet, which made Deadpool a bit of a subculture sensation, being reappropriated in all sorts of fan art and random memes that wouldn't work with any other superhero. For Deadpool, riding a unicorn on a rainbow just kind of fit, and in a lot of ways the internet helped Deadpool take on that multi-dimensional essence that would essentially turn him into the first crowdsourced superhero. Now all this talk about Deadpool comics, video games, and the internet memes is great, but the bottom line is Deadpool would not be the international phenomenon that he is today if it weren't for the 2016 feature film starring Ryan Reynolds. And what's so interesting about this film is how close it was to never being made. In 2009, Deadpool saw the silver screen for the first time in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and although they got the actor right in Ryan Reynolds, it is genuinely agreed that they didn't do the character justice. In 2010, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick were hired to write the script for a Deadpool reboot, and in 2012, they were granted a small budget for test footage. Now here's where the story gets real interesting. Fox did absolutely nothing with the footage, and it appeared that Deadpool would be stuck in what the movie business calls development hell for quite some time. Then all of a sudden in 2014, the test footage was leaked online and got an overwhelming positive response from fans. As for the rest of the story, well, I'm out of breath, so you're gonna have to go find it elsewhere. This is Before Their Fiction.